7:40 in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, Life Support Caribbean Initiative is hosting an event entitled Impact on Governance. It's an all-day event at the Central Bank Auditorium. Today it begins at 9 o'clock, and if you have some time on your hands and you want to be part of it, you just go to the Central Bank Auditorium from 9 o'clock in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. And we have a couple of gentlemen who will give us some context to it all. Someone who's very familiar with us in the political and journalistic environment, Michael Harris, social activist, political activist, columnist, whatever term you would like to use, and Scott Amey, based at Washington, D.C. Mr. Amey, because I can't understand my own writing, I'll ask you to give us your portfolio once again.
I'm the General Counsel of the Project on Government Oversight. We're a nonprofit watchdog organization that tracks the federal government. Right.
So, essentially, Michael Harris, what are we talking about? What is going to be the discussion from 9 o'clock this morning at the Central Bank Auditorium?
Well, what is happening is that the initiative, this organization, has brought together a number of people from around the world, Mr. Amey being one, to give some examples of structures and mechanisms of governance used in different parts of the world, so that we can gain an appreciation of how structures of governance operate in different contexts. My role in the thing this morning would be simply to give an overview of governance issues in Trinidad and Tobago and some elements of what we need to look at as we examine other structures used in other parts of the world.
And Scott Amey, from your own understanding of your role at this event, what do you anticipate your contribution is going to be?
Well, hopefully it is to provide an overview of what works in the United States. And obviously the United States isn't perfect. We have numerous scandals that involve federal agencies, government officials, contractors. We have a lot of wasted money, but that's what we do. We take a look at waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption. And we work with our members of Congress, we work with people in the executive branch, we work with NGOs, and today they want me to provide a presentation of our House Oversight and Government Reform Committee to discuss how oversight is being provided of the executive branch by the congressional branch through this one committee that has a wide jurisdiction and a wide scope, so they're very active. And so it's a comparative study. We're going to take also a look, there's a speaker that's going to talk about the Senate in Australia, and also a gentleman is coming that will speak about the Brazilian budget process. All tools that other countries are using that may help some of the problems here that exist in Trinidad and Tobago.
And Michael Hart, are you excited by this opportunity, or as some would say, is it going to be another talk shop in the sense where people just talk, and we all hear how intelligent and how bright and brilliant certain people are, but is there a particular intention towards the exercise to generate more than just discussion about governance in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, you may be asking the wrong person, because I am not part of the organizing committee.
Well, what are you hoping comes out of it? What are you hoping?
As far as I'm concerned,
the mere fact that you are part of it.
I think that it is an important initiative. I think that governance is a critical element in our politics, or the lack of proper governance, and that it even though if it is all it is a talk shop, I have no problem against talk shops. It is important to disseminate information and ideas into the public domain about governance, its importance, how we might go about what I call crafting a system of governance. So that I am very excited by this conference, and I agreed to participate immediately. I think it's a huge topic they have taken, but I compliment them for it, and I am happy to participate.
Isn't that the case, Mr. Amey? Because we're talking about something that is so broad. I mean, we could spend a long time talking about different elements and aspects of governance. What are you hoping that it distills down to? What are you hoping that people get from the discussion that will take place today?
Well, I think it's a cultural shift. even in the United States, we have the problem where the government is too big. We spend too much money. You're never going to change the system. There's always going to be bad apples and corruption in the system. And we need to start changing that mentality, that you have elections coming up. You have a budget that was just proposed. Yes. I mean, there are things that people need to start asking questions and hold their leaders accountable. We need to hold government agencies accountable for spending every dime. And even in the States, we don't do a very good job. We just spent $60 billion in Iraq, and they're saying $7 or $8 billion is wasted and unaccounted for. And that's unacceptable. We need to find out where every penny's going. We need to track it. We need to make sure that that money was spent wisely, to make sure that we have a government that's representing the people and just not either lining pockets of government officials or lining pockets of people in the private sector that are making money for performing, either not performing and or just getting rich off of that money.
And how do we do that? How do we challenge these assumptions? Because there are certain things that we seem to think are non-negotiable as to how governance should be. People say, well, that's just the way it is. That's how governments are. What else do you want? Do you want communism? Do you want socialism? What do you want? Is it that we have to almost take it for granted that this is just the way it is?
No, I think that, and that's the purpose of today's conference, is to say we need to start asking those questions. We need the mechanisms in the system to provide oversight and accountability. Enforcement. I mean, our system, your system, they're robust laws. But is there?
Are they enforced?
Are they enforced?
Yeah.
And that's always a question. And so, and it ends up being accountability, oversight, and all those equal good governance. And that's what you're hoping to get. And you're hoping that you have kind of the citizens coming forward. And you hear this a lot. You know, I've traveled around multiple countries in the world, and everyone runs on an anti-corruption platform. But when they get into office, things change quite frequently.
and I mean, you're smiling, my God, because I mean, you've written on this extensively over the years, and especially so in the current political environment. Isn't the issue really about the people, the ordinary people, those who actually are the ones to vote, being awakened to the possibilities of either alternatives, of different ways of doing things, or as we say, just the simple issue of holding people accountable? Because maybe it's an assumption on my part to suggest that in Trinidad and Tobago, our idea of holding people accountable is either to vote you in or vote you out.
Because that is the only mechanism we have, elections. And what the whole issue of building a system of governance is all about is putting in place a whole range of mechanisms and structures that give the people the opportunity to, one, become actively involved in the government decision-making process, and secondly, to hold accountable those who are entrusted with the people's money. One of the things in Trinidad, you know, people think is government money.
Yeah.
They talk about this as if it's government money.
And that is the thing, Mr. Amey. I don't know if it's the same in Trinidad in the United States, where it's almost as a given that money, the government is almost as if they are entitled to spend it as they choose, and very few people seriously and openly question your right to spend that money. And I know there's a lot more social activism that goes on, maybe much of it politically inclined, but does that level of pressure groups and non-governmental agencies, do you see them having an impact on governance in the United States?
Yes, and that's exactly where we hope to get to. And it's not only with the NGOs and with the citizens, but it's also creating a culture inside the government of whistleblowers and sources that are going to come forward when they see waste, fraud, abuse, or corruption and report it, and not then be the ones that are held accountable or thrown out of their job, but are actually put on a pedestal and say, well, this is the kind of system that we want. We want to make sure that we spend every dollar wisely, and so we need the structures and systems. And in the United States, we have numerous agencies, we have numerous measures, but there's always still more that needs to be done.
But are they working? Because I mean, you mentioned about whistleblowing. I think Obama would love to get Snowden on a pedestal so they could shoot him down, because he is seen as the ultimate whistleblower. Some have called him a traitor and all of that sort of thing. Is there a line that should not be crossed, in the sense that because people say that there should be openness, that you are the custodians of the public's interest and so on. Are there some things that should remain secret that the public should not be aware of?
Certainly. Obviously, in the United States especially, we probably have, too much secrecy. And the government throws actually what we call blanket of secrecy over a lot of issues. Mr. Snowden, and you raised the question that's being debated in the States. Is he a whistleblower that should be? Or is he a traitor? And I think that what he disclosed in some of the programs probably didn't need protected. And I think that now the government and some of the courts, the secret courts that have been approving these secret wiretaps have come out and said, we actually stepped over the line. We invaded on people's constitutional rights and the right to privacy. And at that point, so him as a whistleblower, there's been some reform there. There's change in the system now. There's going to be better protections and mechanisms to make sure that the NSA and other agencies in the intelligence community don't cross that line again. So actually, his whistleblowing actually has created some major shifts in U.S. thinking and policy about going after internet and cell phone communications. So where the traitor comes in is the fact that he left the country and then he went to Hong Kong and then now he's in Russia. So I think a lot of people in the States have an issue with the fact that where he's gone and he was living in an airport, and why didn't he come back and kind of face the administration? Why didn't he face the NSA and be a true whistleblower that spoke up for what he believed in instead of running out of the country? Yeah, that's problematic for many people.
We have a few seconds left, Michael Harris, and let's just remind everybody that it's the Life Support Caribbean Initiative Impact on Governance Conference, Central Bank Auditorium, from 9 o'clock this morning until 2 in the afternoon. It's open to the public, so if you've got some time on your hands, you can head on down there for what should be a pretty lively discussion. But from your perspective, are we ready to take it a step further, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, or are we just making a lot of noise now because it's election season?
No, I think we are ready. I think all the signs point to the fact that I could talk about Chaguanas West.
Yes.
Point to the fact that the people are ready to throw off the shackles of the old constraints that have bound us for the last 50 years. So that the people are ready, the thing is for the leadership in the country now to pose the issues that are important for the people to think as they make that what he called a cultural shift. In our case, it's not just culture, it's politics. And I think this conference is one of those efforts towards doing that.
Some will say that politics is the culture of Trinidad and Tobago as well. Scott, Amey, good to get your perspective. Michael Harris, looking forward as well to your contribution. Should be a pretty interesting discussion indeed. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming in this morning. And they'll be heading down to the Central Bank Auditorium very shortly for that event that begins at 9 o'clock, open to the public. News, and then I'll be back to wrap up the program.